If you've ever felt like you're good at a lot of things, but not fully alive for any of them, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the Underlayer, where the real story lives beneath the surface. This podcast is for midlife professionals who look successful on the outside, but feel misaligned, stuck, or disconnected on the inside. I'm your host, David Young, and today we are digging in to one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal and professional growth, your zone of genius. What it is, what it isn't, and why so many high achievers miss it, and what finding it can unlock for you in your life and business. Today, I'm joined by Maira, a strategist who helps seasoned solopreneurs, executive coaches, and creative experts turn scattered expertise into a premium, scalable signature offer so their business earns more without relying on constant overwork. She has 20 years of translating complex ideas into frameworks for senior leaders and mission-driven organizations. Maira now brings that same level of expertise and architectural approach to their businesses. In this episode, you'll walk away with three things. First, what your zone of genius actually is and why most people confuse it with what they're just simply good at. Second, the invisible traps that keep high-performing professionals from ever tapping into that genius. And finally, how to architect your business around your genius instead of just your obligations. So if you're feeling stretched thin, if you've outgrown your current chapter, or part of you knows there's a deeper, sharper version of you waiting to emerge, this conversation will help you identify what you do best, why it matters, and how you can finally build the life or business that reflects your true genius. Maira, thanks for coming on the show today. How's it going?
Oof, I think, can we just wrap it up right there? Like,
Just that's it. We're done.
that's it. Like, we're done.
You got everything you need.
That was phenomenal, really.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited to talk about this.
No, you're welcome. So when I think of you, I think of Zone of Genius. That's like I feel like that's your brand, that's your identity. If that's not what it's supposed to be, you've done a bad job. Because that's what I think of you as an expert. So that's why I want to have you on. I think
no pressure.
None. I think Zone of Genius is, like I said in the intro, I think it's really misunderstood. I don't even know if I have a great understanding of it myself, because I would describe it as just like the things that I'm just like naturally good at or really good at. But I think it's so much more than that. So we'll just start at the top. Like, just kind of describe like what is, when someone says you're working in your zone of genius or you're in your zone of genius, like what does that actually mean?
Yeah, such a good question. I mean, I've read so many books around zone of genius, and there's so many writings about this. I don't know if you've heard of the book called The Big Leap, right? By Gay Hendrickson.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
Yeah. Gay. And he has his own definition. And there's Laura Garnett, who also talks about zone of genius. And everybody has their own definition. And I think where I sort of, and they all, sort of align, and they not necessarily talk about the same kind of way, but I would say that it's the kind of work that just won't leave you alone. It's a nagging feeling where it shows up in every career. You keep searching, you keep like, there's got to be more. This can't be it, right? And you can't quite describe it, because people go through lots of different career transitions, right? They go through lots of different titles and changing jobs, changing niches, right?
Yeah.
And then they're still kind of like searching, like, what is it? And that, to me, is the underlayer of finding, like, wanting to find that true thread. What is the thread that connects it all?
And can it be multiple? Can that thread can there be like multiple through lines, or is it always like one main like area and then it has offshoots?
I think of it as like it can be like multiple through lines. It's a one through line that's the one that you feel the most emotionally invested in and connected with the kind of work that you want to do. You will see, and it doesn't take much. If you want to take a keen observation, looking at some of the people that have built a body of work, that they tend to always talk about one thing, but that one thing shoots off with different topics.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that they can't bounce around, but they are very much married to that core topic that they're talking about. Right?
So yeah, that does make sense. So like when you work with clients, and that's a big part of
Hmm.
your work, one-on-one, where you help them like kind of identify, tap into their zone of genius, and then you kind of build their main signature offer that really utilizes that zone of genius, right? When they come
Right.
to you, how often are they just not really aware? Like they think they're like, oh, this is what I'm good at, so this is what I'm going to coach, or my consulting, or like whatever their service business is, and then through the work with them, it actually was like that actually wasn't it. Like how often do you see that disparity?
A lot,
Hmm.
quite a bit. Yeah, because we form an identity over time, right? And an identity is either caused by subconscious, like we're just doing it because we're good at it, and even maybe your colleagues or your friends or your people around you have told you you're really good at this,
Mhm.
you should keep doing that. But just because they've said it doesn't mean that that's what's going to keep you challenged, right? And it's going to keep you motivated to keep not necessarily in the flow, but you feel that good pressure, that good challenge. Like, I wonder what is there. Like, I wonder how much I can experiment with this to stretch my thinking,
Hmm.
right? And oftentimes, what I see is that they stop or they kind of like um, flattened, or they have not necessarily stagnated, but they've become complacent with becoming good at it.
Because it comes so easily.
It either comes so easily and naturally, and and sometimes it can be really confusing, because if you're getting paid really well to be really good at something, why would you ever want to take on something that is maybe a little more unknown or challenging or out of your scope, right?
Hmm.
That's
Interesting.
also that also becomes very hard to discern and filter for yourself, unless you have somebody else asking you, prompting you with the questions that you've never thought of,
Yeah.
right? Like for yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because well, so when I first, excuse me, when I first started creating content on LinkedIn, it was the summer of 23, and I'd never
Hmm.
done, had not done social media before, so I had not written posts or you know tweets or Instagram posts, anything. So it was very new to me. But I'm a pretty natural storyteller, so I was like, oh, I just have all these stories,
Yes.
and I was trying to turn those into content, and I was kind of learning as I went. And the
Hmm.
first coach that I hired a couple months later,
Hmm.
after maybe a month of working with her, she was like, writing content is like you're working in your zone of genius when you write content. That's what she said to me. And like
Mm.
that had never even occurred to me. Like I was like, oh, I okay. Like I just do it. She was like, no, no, no. She was like, you do it in a different way. Most people can't do that. You can tell stories the way you write, the way it comes out, like because I was getting pretty decent engagement. I had like 400 or 500 followers at that time. She was like, people are coming back, they want to see what you're writing. She was like, that's just not normal for most LinkedIn creators. Like they write stuff and no one sees it, and then they keep writing and no one still sees it, and it takes like a really long time for people to
Yes.
find you. She's like, people have found your stuff pretty early and they're coming back, which means they like are interested in what you're saying. She was like, so that's like not normal. So like what does that mean to you? Like, just was it the storytelling aspect that I was good at and then I was able to write it? Was it the writing? Like I never really, like I knew what she meant, but I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. And so there's two things, right? One, now if we're talking from a business perspective, right? Because that's how I mean, I'm marrying the concepts of zone of genius. Now, there might be a career strategist who talks about zone of genius. That's different.
Yeah.
Then that's person's helping them find their zone of genius and helping them navigate through career change,
Yeah.
right? But for me, from a business standpoint, if we are trying to commercialize something from an outside, how the outside market sees you, right? And if you're enjoying and writing and your storytelling, and there is a part that we're like, it just comes naturally to you, right? But there's an aspect where it still doesn't quite differentiate you, because how many people are doing storytelling maybe just as much or just as good,
Yeah.
right? So what is the true genius and the flavor, the unique flavor that comes through David, that I'm not seeing within the ingredients that's been cooked together?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not
Yeah.
about taking pieces of you and just like putting things apart, but like, how am I integrating all of that to create the zone of genius that no one else is able to replicate that?
Hmm. Yeah, kind of you're one of one proposition, so to speak.
Yeah, people talk about category of one, or like your unique value proposition kind of thing. But for me, it's kind of like, um, it's your method to madness, your ingredients that no one is able to, like, it may be a grandma recipe that you make,
Hmm.
but then it's not going to be the same meal that you cook every time. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because it's your spin has in there, in the way you create the ingredients and collect the ingredients. So that's why I think that it's something that people, oftentimes what I see is that they either haven't taken the time to really explore it, or they've just taken whatever is there to create something that, okay, that's what I do.
Yeah. How much do you think personality plays a factor? Because obviously if we're trying to differentiate and we all have different personalities and the way we life experiences and the way we view things and all of that. So if we're talking about a business and an offer, like how, and you see this a lot, like in your content, like be yourself and let your personality shine through, like all that kind of stuff. Like how much do you think that plays when you're, if you, let's say you're close to your zone of genius, then how much personality do you think then also has to be layered in order for it to really like separate?
Yeah, this is a really tricky question and a very good one. And I'll tell you, because there's so many personality assessments out there, right? You've taken probably one, right?
I've taken
There's
a lot of them.
there, what is it called? There's Enneagram, and there's, you know, uh, I forget what it is, but
Myers-Briggs, Clifton, DISC,
Myers-Briggs. Oh my God,
Holland.
Clifton. Oh my God. Like, if you were to analyze all that data,
I have.
holy shit. Like, sorry, I'm swearing.
You can swear.
Hopefully it's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
And I'm just going like, how do you make sense out of it? All of that, right? So I'm a INFJ or whatever, right? And then playing that character. So does that mean I say no to this job? Does that mean I say no to that project? To me, I play a lot of intuition
Hmm.
in my role. So there's a tapping into your intuitiveness. And I know it sounds woo woo, but it's really not. Like, if you think about it, your gut is pretty strong.
Hmm.
And the times when you haven't listened to your gut, you probably said, ah, man, I should have listened.
Yeah.
You knew that was going to happen, but you didn't listen
Yeah.
because your mind took over, whatever that
It's like
was.
the story of my life. That could be the title of my book.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That, like,
Mhm.
if we had an intelligent way to, and ChatGPT can do that, if you have an intelligent way to interpret your own gut readings, then you would be able to make decisions better.
100%.
But we're not trained, we're not taught to listen to our gut,
Yeah, I mean
you
it's
know?
well, yeah, they definitely don't teach it. They'll say it.
Yes.
So it's like, "Oh, like go with your instinct." But then all the other all the other
Noise, distractions.
is all cerebral,
Yes.
logical thought, analyzing. Like so it's the ratio is so heavily slanted that even
Of
though
course.
this is my experience, like even though I'll feel something inside and I'm like, I know this is right or wrong, it goes both ways, but then you have just it's just so much. And then you're like, oh well, okay, like I'll give it a shot. And then it's never right. You're like, oh, I should have just listened. And then you just repeat that. Um, so I think
Yeah.
so. What's interesting about that is talking about like not being taught. I don't I don't ever remember hearing about like zone of genius. Definitely not in school. Um, Definitely not in college. And I don't even remember really through most of my corporate career. I just don't remember that term. Like, how new is that term? And like, do you think it would be something that we could start incorporating earlier so people started to think about it earlier?
Yes. You know, I that's again, you bringing up some really good points here because it's true. I haven't heard the term zone of genius being implanted even at an early age, right? Um, I certainly didn't. If somebody came to me and said, "Are you working in your zone of genius?" I'd be like, "What?"
What are you
You
talking
know,
about?
yeah. I'm
I don't
like,
know.
I'm just doing my work. I mean, I'm
Right.
paying my bills. Is
Yeah.
that sufficient?
Right.
Um, but now that you raise a question, I honestly haven't really looked into it, but I do know that people are more conscious and talking about zone of genius in a roundabout way, but not so much like, you definitely should be in your zone of genius when you launch a business.
Yeah.
You would think that's duh, like that is so obvious, right? But it's not, right? The first thing one people do is like, what will make you money the fastest? Launch
Yeah.
something that will make you the fastest money.
Well, that
Anyway,
also describes me because my first offer was around LinkedIn, like helping people with LinkedIn and storytelling and writing
sure,
content because like I was good at it.
right.
And I did make some money. I signed clients, like a decent number of clients, like within 2 or 3 months. So like it was working on paper. The problem was it was not aligned with what I really wanted to be doing. So I
Right.
burnt out fairly quickly. And then two, what I learned is I couldn't teach people the way that I was doing content. It wasn't teachable. Like it was just kind of the way that I did it. It was just the way that I processed stories, thought about stories, the way that I wrote. Like I could do it for people, but I could not teach them what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just couldn't. Um, so so like that gets back to our like layers point. Like it isn't necessarily, well, you're good at that, so that's your business. Like maybe, but there's a lot of other and a lot of it's psychological um motivation,
Right.
like you said. Like if you're gonna launch it and 3 months later you're like, this isn't for me. That's obviously not sustainable.
Something you mentioned, and I want to uh, point that out. You said something about burnout, right? So, this is what happens when people are really good at something, but they've kind of lost the flame at certain point, right? They've kind of lost that spark. To me, that's also a sign, indication of that you haven't quite hit your zone of genius yet.
Hmm.
Okay. If the energy is not, now, I'm not saying that I don't burn out. Of course I do. As a solopreneur,
Yeah.
are you kidding? Like you're wearing different hats every day,
Yeah.
right? Accounting, uh, writing newsletters, operations, things like that, right? That's another reason why I talk about signature offer and things like that. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But the misalignment and the energy is a big one, because if you can't sustain your energy, I am getting burned out, but guess what? I am next day waking up with a fresh energy again, and it's empty. The tank is ready to be
Yeah.
loaded again,
It comes back
right?
much more quickly. Yeah.
It comes back. So you can see that people who are like speaking on the stage, right? They're doing 17, 16-hour talks. How are they even able to sustain that?
Yeah.
It's insane. Bernard Burchard is one of them. He's getting up there and talking about performance and things like that for hours,
Yeah.
right? And he's burned out, but he comes back the next day and he's swinging right back.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the difference.
Yeah, I think the energy component's a big one, and I don't think that's talked a lot about. I'm trying to do a lot more of that, these last several months, as I've kind of been shifting. I've been really trying to pay attention to my
Mm-hmm.
energy and like the projects I'm working on or things I'm working on. I
Yes.
really ask myself, like, as I'm doing it, like, do I really want to be doing this? Am I looking forward to doing this? Am I happy when it's over? Like you said, you take a break next day. am I putting it off? Like, I don't really want to do that. Or am I diving right back in and really trying to
Yes.
be much more cognizant
Right.
of that? Because I think that's a big indicator. It kind of ties into the gut and intuition, because your energy typically will not lie to you nearly as much as your mind
Oh,
will.
no.
So
Hmm.
it's hard to fake that. So I think that's important. And I did not, like, again, going back when I was a kid and then going to school, like no one ever said like, well, really pay attention to your energy here. Like that just literally never happened. It was just like, you have skills or talents or what are you interested in? And then boom, that, like, go do that and then get a job. And hopefully you can use some of those. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Just grind it out for 50 years. You'll be fine. That was the plan.
That's what most people do.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah. And see, it's so hard to, again, I'm going to say this again, unless you have someone to mirror those behavior and the patterns that are emerging out of those, you know, your background and your stories and things that's happening to you, it's so hard to do this for yourself.
Yeah.
You almost feel like, yes, you absolutely need someone to hold that mirror for you so you can start to answer the questions like, oh, wait, I haven't thought of that. There's things that I will go through sessions with my clients. They've said things and I'm like, hold on a second. Do you remember? Do you know what you just said? And I will remind them. But they don't have a cognitive, they don't have that conscious way of stopping themselves.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's just human. We're not built to stop ourselves in the track. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that kind of gets into why so many people can go, honestly, they go their whole lives and never really get there, like never really tap into it, because they don't either take the
Yeah.
time or they don't work with the right person, or it just like doesn't occur to them. And so you can just miss out, which is sad, but I think it's true for so many.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. And not to mention the sheer overwhelm of draining. And I don't know if you saw my carousel in one of those crazy posts about, I don't know if I did a good job, but all I wanted to say is that, like, the information that's coming at us today at a speed, and now coupled with AI and everything, it's just, we can't keep up anymore.
No, it's impossible. It's just overwhelming.
It's too much, And so for me, it's like, okay, I just want to find a quiet corner, a quiet space, sit there, and just in an old-fashioned way, maybe just write a few things.
Yeah,
Right?
I think a lot of us, if we're paying attention, are usually looking for ways to slow it down, get away from the
Yes.
noise. Reading, writing, being outside,
Right.
exercising, yard work, whatever. Just not plugged in, right? And I think that's when most of us get our best ideas, right? Taking a shower, walking the dog, driving without sound. Like when
100%.
your mind's not engaged, then it has a chance to
Yeah.
settle, relax, and then that's when ideas come to you. But when you're on two computers and looking at your phone and listening to something and doing something else, like you're not going to get the ideas aren't coming then.
And not only that, like, I think, we are all suffering from the recycled ideas, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, I've seen that before. I've heard that before,
Yeah.
And I think part of it is also that people are not, again, I'll go back to what we talked about. They're not taking enough time to slow down, pause, and retrack what they're building,
Yeah.
So
What do you think, in your client experience, what has been the biggest, where someone came to you and they were like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, and at the end of your work, like, what do you think was like it was the not totally different, but like the biggest gulf between they started here and they ended up here?
Yeah, so it changed after a while. I will say that my avatar, whatever you call client avatar, the profile has been it has changed over the years. But right now, the people that I'm really interested in working with, that they already have built a body of work. They've already created, products, whether it's one-on-one or some group offerings and a mastermind and things like that. What I see is that when I ask, I have an exercise actually that I take them through,
Mm-hmm.
and I have them write down their percentages of what things that actually is giving them energy versus what's draining them.
Yeah.
And it's an exercise, unless you sit down and you actually kind of write it down and gone through it, you'll be like, oh, wow, I'm only spending 1% here where I should be spending 80% of my time here.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone does that. I had never even thought about that until I read the book, Design Your Life. It was like 2017, 2018. And they had, it's more like career based, but part of one of the exercises in the book was similar, where it was like, look at your job and then just document like the way you spend your time, and then go back and assign like yay or nay to energy drainer or energy giver, and then kind of tally it up. And for me in that role, it was like 2% energy give and 98% like energy drain. I was like, maybe this is the wrong role.
Oh my God. You will, I mean, it can't lie to you. It's right there staring at you. And now you have to decide what you're going to do with that information, right?
Grind it out for another couple years. So when you've done that with your clients, and they've done probably something similar to what I did, except for their business, and they realize like, oh, wow, I'm doing all of these things because I thought I had to keep my business going. And now that I'm looking at it, I realized that, 50, 60, maybe even 75% of my time is draining my energy. So then what?
Tell them to quit.
So you have them just cut out. You realign and cut the energy drainers out.
Right. Yeah. There's no middle ground for me when I mean, maybe I'm too, too direct in that, but if it's an agency that's not making you money, you're running an agency, you're pouring more money and more energy into hiring and firing and trying to run a team and all that, and you're not so good at it, maybe that's not meant for you. And it's a very hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. Like, oh my God, I spent all these years, all this time to build this up, and now you're telling me to let go? Yeah. Zone of genius is one of the biggest thing is knowing and finally realizing what it's time to let go of.
Cutting it. Yeah, the sunk cost.
Cutting it. It's not only sunk cost, it's like it's an emotional cost. And it's emotional labor that most people don't think about, right? So I only have one product and that's been going on for the last 3 years. And if I ever build, break into that core product into multiple products, whether it becomes a course or a thing, it'll be just that one product. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely you can spread yourself too thin for sure. And that's kind of that's perpetuated, I think, part of it is the multiple income stream, because you see that a lot, don't have one, right? So you need to have 3 or 5 or 7, and don't rely on any one. If one
Fear of FOMOs, there's a lot of FOMOs.
Yeah, if one goes away or goes down, you've got the others. Like which I get the logic, but I think you can't. I think you can get too diversified, and then you're either just not able to give energy, even if it does energize you. You just simply can't, because you're just there's only so much you can do. Or it's not, and then it's just draining, and then it doesn't work.
Now, I will say it might be different if you're a serial entrepreneur, somebody who has launched not just one startup, but 50 startups, and you have just raised so much capital, you just know, right? Which product will take off in the marketplace, right? That's different. But most experts, consultants who have 20 decades of corporate experience, I do not suggest them to come and enter in the market with a devalued product.
Yeah.
Right? a low ticket offer, that's going to drain not just your energy, it's going to drain your bank, it's going to drain your expenses, everything.
Yeah, I made that mistake too. Well, I think we're just covering
Yeah.
most of the mistakes I made. This is making me feel good.
I'm sorry.
It's good. It's fine.
We'll come back to the good parts. I promise.
I thought it was easier to sell low ticket. Like I wanted people to say yes. So I intentionally priced it
Right.
low. And then even when I got clients, I did raise the prices, but I didn't raise them by like that much because I was still worried that people would stop saying yes, and I wanted them to say yes. Like I wanted them to pay me, and I wanted, even if it was lower dollar, I was willing to take
Right.
the lower dollar because I wanted the money and I wanted clients, which was fine. It wasn't necessarily wrong, but it isn't sustainable because then I was doing a lot of work and I had a lot of
Right.
clients. I wasn't making a lot of money, and then you're like, oh, well. Okay, I could have just signed one high ticket client and made more money and then done less work. That would have made more sense. But you don't think about that at the beginning anyway. Most
You
don't.
know, but can I tell you, David, first of all, this is so common that you should not feel bad about it because it's most experts, I think most consultants start out that way.
Yeah.
Even I did. And I think, well, I shouldn't say that. My first product was $5,000.
Nice.
I did manage to sell a high ticket from the very beginning. And maybe that's why I'm jaded. I'm so against it because, I've tried selling low cost products. Here's the funny thing. I've tried selling low tiered products and it never went well. It's never went well.
I think it's harder.
It's so much harder.
Yeah.
It's so much harder.
It's a different buyer. You still have to put the same amount of energy in selling and promoting it.
Yes.
So it's like if you're going to go through all that, you might as well get a $5,000 yes instead of a $500 yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I'm not going to lie to you. It was tempting though. Oh, should I turn this into a course, sell a 197 product, and then I also went through a whole phase of trying to learn from Russell Brunson how to set up ClickFunnels and do upsells and downsells and try to get people to buy into this, webinars and this. I spent so much time doing this crap that, and that's I don't know how much we have time to cover my story, but that's really how it started. That's where my breakthrough was, where I'm like, if I were to walk away tomorrow, my business will collapse. I'm not building a system. I'm not creating a system. I'm creating products that relies on me.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a foundational problem for a lot of entrepreneurs.
And is that, when you get into the zone of genius, is that also then helping them create the systems that allow, I guess, like the genius to perform at its like most consistent, or I don't know what the right word is, but like at its smoothest? I don't know.
Yeah, so my philosophy is that if you're going to once we kind of align the zone of genius, right? Then we got to figure out what is the signature product that you're going to wrap your entire business model around. Okay? We're not going to have a business model where you have like membership model and this and that. If you can't sustain it, and if you don't have the stamina as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur to kind of keep up with that, then my question is, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Is it because you saw somebody else do it, or is it because you think that that's what's going to give you the most money?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I definitely think there's a lot of looking at what other people are doing, and then like it seems to be working for them.
Yeah.
So like I'll give that a spin. I think you see that a lot with memberships, communities. That's very popular. At least it was. I think it still is. But you're like, oh, well, I can charge $29, $49, whatever dollars a month, and I'll get certain signups, and then that's recurring revenue, which is yes, but there's a ton of work. There's a ton of
course there is
people coming in and out. So you're signing new people, and you have to have meetings. There has to be value of what they're paying for, and it's like. So yeah, it's great if you want to do that. But like you said, like that can't just be like a 5%er, like, oh, I'll also start this community. Like if you're gonna do the community, that's pretty much it. Like
Hmm.
that's your thing. So but we don't think about that because we're just like, oh, that's just another way I can make some money. I can get, whatever. So it's easy to get distracted. And I think that's why the zone of genius is important, because I think if you stay true to the energy and the genius, I think you would realize pretty quickly, like, oh, that community is not a great idea, or that $49 product is not a great idea. Like it starts
Right.
to make a lot more sense and be much easier, like you said earlier, like to just say no and be like, no, I don't want to do that.
Right. And again, it goes back to the DNA, the identity of the founder, right? If I go through the extraction, we call it the excavation process of their stories and what they've done historically. And if I see the historical patterns have been like, they're not someone who's really good at bringing community or bringing people together. It's not their true strength. Then why go through that route?
Yeah.
Just because it looks good?
Yeah.
Right? Like I personally wouldn't want to create a circle platform and try to like that's just not me with 100,000 people in it and trying to navigate what lessons to drop, modules to drop. There's some people who are awesome at it.
Yeah.
Great, let them do it.
I think if you had 100,000 members, I think you would change your mind, but that's just me.
I might, yeah, I might do it, but I just don't want to.
2 million. If you were making 2 million a month,
2 million,
I think you'd be like, all right, I'll figure this out.
Well, yes, only caveat is as long as I have time to do the things that I love doing, yeah, that would be fine with me. Yes.
I would just do it for a year and take the money and then just tap out. So what,
That's an option.
Yeah. So what do you think then? What do you think holds so many of us back then from ever identifying it? Do you think it's one thing, or is it society, or don't find the right coach, or you never even know that it exists? Like, what do you think?
It's a combination of all of those. I mean, I think one, the famous phrase, which I hate, is you don't know what you don't know. But then I think also it's like people, when you watch your kids, they're not thinking other than just like they're just so strongly curious about what they want to explore, right? And I think we lose that spark of curiosity as we grow into adulthood, right?
Well, we're forced to make
We're forced
to start
right.
making choices and get into lanes,
Of
and
course.
then like there is they don't really allow. I'm seeing it now. My kids are 16 and 11, but like with my 16-year-old, and he's already looking at he's a sophomore at the high school, and so he's already looking at classes for his junior year, and he's even with his counselor like looking at senior year classes too. But they really, I don't know. It's a little better now than when I was in school. It has gotten better, but they still you really have to pick. There's not a ton of options, and then you kind of get. I mean, when you're 16, you don't know what most people have no idea like what you want to do. You might have interest, or you'd be like, I'm good at this, or I like this. But in terms of like a vocation, whether it's a business or a traditional career, you really have like my 16-year-old could not articulate like a career plan right now. Like he could tell you like I like X, or I would think I could do this, but he couldn't be like, oh well, my zone of genius or my area of expertise is this, and I will then, and he would not be able to extrapolate that out. Like he just can't. And I think most 16-year-olds can't.
Most people can't.
But you start to really, it starts to get really narrow. Like my 11-year-old is different. It's still like he's in the 6th grade. Nobody really cares. He's not thinking about work. So it's like, do whatever. But it really starts to narrow. And then by the time you get to college, like you have to pick a major, which also it doesn't make any sense as a freshman or even a sophomore. Like,
how do you know?
Right. How do you know? Like, why not just take a bunch of classes and see, like, again, measure your energy, measure what interests you, what are you good at, and then pick. But no, like your first day, it's like you're going to major in biology, you're going to major in, English or business, whatever. But it's weird. But anyway, so to me, it's like narrower and narrower and narrower. And then you graduate, you got to get a job, and now it's super narrow. Like if you get a job in marketing, that's it. Like you're not spending any other time other than on your marketing job. Well, what if that isn't it? But then what?
Right.
Then you have to do it then you have to do it like at night, on the weekends. Anyway, so I think I 100% agree that it starts really wide, curiosity and kids, and you letting them explore and play, and that's how they learn. but it goes away it goes away really quickly, and I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. Like, for me personally, and it was a natural, like, oh, I went to design school. So what do you do? Okay, so the natural progression would be to become a graphic designer.
Mm,
So I went in graphic designer, did that, but then that job became very much like there's no, it just pretty much dead end, you know, a corporate dead end. There's no growth. It's stalled. And to me, that should have been the sign, like,
yeah.
get out of there, like, as fast as possible, and try to explore something that, but I always loved the idea of having a business.
Mm,
For some reason, I loved business. I started MLM marketing. I started doing all kinds of shit like that doesn't really quite, you know, fit the mold,
yeah.
but I did it anyway because I was interested in building something, creating
Well, it was
something,
curiosity. You were
you
trying to
know?
figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but then again, that the question is like, is if I start, like, if graphic design, if this is it, what else is there? Right. For me, it just turned into more curiosity of like, I wonder what if I can take my existing skills that I had sitting down with CEOs and executives and high level thinkers and people who are subject matter experts. I'm used to, like, somebody giving them a chicken drawings and turning them into something, you know. And that's always been my strength. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea how it comes, but it does.
Uh,
Always been able to bring
yeah.
out the vision that they had and come to life, right? And that's something that, how do you translate that into a product? That is also something that many people get lost, like, okay, yeah, I have these skills, but how do you turn that into a viable product,
Yeah, but
right?
I mean, are you talking product in terms of service or product, or like an actual
Product, like an
product?
offer. I call it, like, anybody who has a business, it's not necessarily a physical product, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's a, it's still something, it's still a product at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things to do is to take your expertise, whatever it is, and then
Yes.
package it in a way, present it in a way, describe it in a way that really works not only for you in terms of using this skill set, this expertise, but then also in
Hmm.
helping solve the problem. Because typically, like, people are buying from you because they're they're stuck, or they're not making progress, or they don't know what to do, but there's some underlying issue of
Hmm.
solving something. You have to solve something. And I think that's for me, but I think a lot of people where it's like, all right, I'm good at this. I have all these skills, whatever. But like, what am I actually really solving? Like, what am I actually
Yeah.
helping them with? And I think that's very difficult to articulate. And then, like you're
Yes, it
talking
is.
about, put into then like a package, a product, an offer, whatever you want to call it, that then you sell, because there's like a, I don't know, there's something missing. There's like lost in translation or something.
Of course. Yeah. And and the more expertise you build over time, the harder it gets, because you don't know which one to distill and which one to keep and which one to, and it's not, for me, it's not necessarily the answer of like, oh, disregard these things and just do that one thing. For me, it's like, okay, what are the parts of you that's built worth, it's built working around
Yeah.
and creating something that's a container that will grow with you over time.
Yeah.
And again, not many people spend the time to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think your offer in itself is unique. Because I don't know of another like zone of genius offer, and like tap into your zone of genius and build it into your offer. I mean, maybe somebody else has that. I don't, you might know, but I've never,
Yeah.
excuse me, I've never seen that. I've seen a lot of ghostwriting. I've seen a lot of just coaching. That's, that's everywhere. But like your offer
Well,
stands out.
I mean, again, it's the gap that I've been noticing, right? Everyone's talking about how to package your expertise, how to sell your expertise, how to monetize your expertise, right? But those things are easy to talk about. I shouldn't say easy to talk about, but again, it's only taking what you've done in your previous job, or in the previous job, right?
Yeah.
But it's not considering your entire timeline. It's not considering the things that you've done even as a child.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are some of the things that I tap into. I go all the way back to your childhood.
Like when I wanted to be Bob Costas and talk about sports for a living.
I'm serious. Like, there's a reason why you're such a good host. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. We haven't explored it yet.
It's true.
Right?
This is true. Like we could do a whole episode on that, but we won't do that right now.
Yes. No.
But I will when this is over. I will share a quick story before I let you go. Anyway,
Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, excuse me, someone's out there listening and this resonates and they're like, okay, like I don't know what my zone of genius is. I might know what I'm good at. I might know what I'm interested in, but I don't know what else to do. Like, what would be like one or two things that would start to move them towards like identifying it or at least getting closer like to it? They're like, I want to know what my zone of genius is, or at least could be.
Yeah. So I am working on I've been saying that for a while. Now I really need to launch it, but a workshop around that. Finding your, I don't know if I'm going to call it finding your zone of genius or what. I haven't quite settled on it. But the idea is that I want every founder who's listening to this, or a solopreneur who has done tons of work, different, serve different types of people, clients and whatnot. I want you to write down your story. And when I put them in a story of their origin story. And when you write down your origin story, you're basically tapping into early childhood. You're tapping into your turning points, the biggest turning points. And then there's memories that they just like, so there's something happen in your life where that's where you start to like, oh shit, that's where things have started to take shape. Everyone, I don't care who you are. I've talked to so many people. There's like, if you write down, things will come up.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. And you start to look at, I call it the red thread. What is the red thread that is running through all those stories that's been telling you a theme that's emerging from that, a common theme? For some of them, example, like for me, it's always been seeking for acceptance, seeking approval, and never feeling good enough. Anything I did, I don't know. And that was part of the thing that why people ask me, like, why zone of genius? Because I never felt genius my entire life. I never thought I had the genius.
Yep. But
genius is not about an IQ or how smart you are.
Right.
Right? It's the kind of like, it's some sort of inner awakening and a calling that, like I said, it won't leave you alone. Right? Yeah. And that lack of acceptance is something that I can give somebody without zero, like I will never run out of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's tied, it's connected to a purpose. And when you find that through thread, that's when we can start to think about how does that connect to the business world? How does that shape, and how does that, we can talk about all those things, but that start there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great exercise. I did something a little different, but similar, where I was looking back. I was it was like a timeline, and I was drawing on the timeline like ups and downs and highs and lows and turning points and that type of stuff. So it was a little different, but it did cause me to look at it kind of at a macro level, where you're looking down, almost like you're looking down like at your life.
Yeah, it's a map. Like it's almost look like you're looking at a map.
Yeah, exactly. And you're
right.
You don't typically do that because you're like in it, but you don't typically put it like away from you, where you're like, now I'm seeing it. So honestly, the biggest thing that jumped out was how short, like, it was like, 0 birth, and then my current age 50, and then we did decades, and I was like, oh, like, it's so short, it's so small, like it's so tiny. Because even in the longest of lives, right? Like, we're here for like a split second when you consider like the whole,
right,
all of it. And so I was like, oh, like I'm running out of time. Like I'm not getting any younger. So like, well, I really have to like step on it.
Did it depress you?
It wasn't necessarily depressing, but it was just, I don't know. It was just something about it was like, I gotta go. Like it goes fast, but no, I think I really love the way you said that about the genius, and we think of it as like smart, like Einstein or something. Um, and first of all, there's lots of different levels and types of genius. It isn't always just
Right.
IQ.
Right.
There's lots of different types of intelligence and all of that stuff. But um, yeah, that feeling of like where you're, like you said, it won't leave you alone. It comes through. It's a through thread, red line, a through line, whatever you want to call it. Like
Right.
it permeates through everything. And if you do that exercise, like you're talking about, kind of writing it down, or it's a map, or both, or something similar, like that's what you're
Yeah.
looking for. And I think that's a great place to start when you're trying to like search and figure out something.
Yeah, because even if let's say we created an offer that emerges from all those the through thread, right? It can change in terms of like it can be iterative throughout the years, and your ICP might even change. That's okay, but your core theme doesn't change.
Right.
Your purpose doesn't change, and that's the part that I'm trying to tell people, that like if you start there, then that's when you stop worrying about what niche am I going to go in, what this, and how am I going to change, what if the market changes? Who cares?
Right.
My product doesn't change.
Yeah.
My offer doesn't change.
Your story and through line isn't going to change.
No.
Right.
So that's the most constant thing that I can rely on.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, that's the spiel that if anybody wants to challenge me on that, I'm like, bring it on. Let's do it.
Love it. If people are interested in learning more about working with you or just about your work, what's the easiest way for them to get in touch or to find you?
Unfortunately, I don't have a lead magnet, so I am the lead magnet.
Contact me.
I am contact me. I am the lead magnet. So if you want to have a candid conversation, and if you like the conversation that like we had, I hope that you can tell that I'm as transparent as I can be. And if I can't work with you, I'll tell you, like, we're not ready to work together. But at the very least, to have a conversation where I could at least tell you that, like, okay, yeah, I can see the problem and I can help you with that, or, or take a course, $97 course.
Got it. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of The Underlayer, where the real story lives. If this episode resonated, please follow, rate, and subscribe so you never miss a new conversation, or you can share it with a friend who you feel like might get something out of it. Maira, really appreciate you coming on and all of your great insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I loved it.